Welcome, this is Atlas Shrugging. I'm Zach, and this is my YouTube channel. Before we jump into this, there's an old joke I want to tell because it's applicable to what we're going to talk about today. I've heard a few different versions of this, so I'm going to go with kind of a simple one just because it gets the point across pretty clearly. So, there are two department stores. They opened up across the street from each other. One was for women, and the other for men. The women could go and shop for a husband, and obviously the men could go and shop for a wife. Each had 6 floors, and the rules were simple. You could enter the store only once, and you cannot shop on the same floor more than once. So once you leave that floor to go to the next floor, the previous floor is no longer available to you. So, one day a woman enters her store and sees the sign on the first floor that reads, "Wealthy Men." She shrugs and immediately goes up the escalator to the second floor. The sign on the second floor reads, "Wealthy Men that adore children." She says, "Okay, we're getting better," but continues to the third floor. The sign on the third floor reads, "Wealthy men that adore children and are very good looking." She thinks, all right, this is a pretty good deal, but goes on to the fourth floor. The sign on the fourth floor reads, "Wealthy, attractive men who adore children and help with household chores." Since it just keeps getting better and better, she decides to move on to the fifth floor. The sign on the fifth floor reads, "Wealthy, attractive men that adore children, help with household chores, and have a romantic side." She thinks, all right, this is great. She picks out a husband and is about to go make a purchase. However, just as she approaches the register, she wonders, you know what? There's a 6th floor. I wonder what's up there. And she decides to go up. The sign on the 6th floor reads, "You are visitor number 12,365,458,932,347 to this floor. There are no men here. This floor exists only to prove that it is impossible to please women." The same day, a man walks into his store. The sign on the floor reads, "Women that love bedroom fun." He says, "That's great, but what else?" And he goes up to the second floor. The sign on the second floor reads, "Women that love bedroom fun and can cook." He says, all right, we're getting closer. Moves on to the third floor. The sign on the third floor reads, "Women that love bedroom fun, can cook, and have a nice figure." He picks out a wife, makes his purchase. Nobody knows what's the signs on the 4th and 5th floors at the mail store say, because no man has ever visited them. Before we jump in, please like, comment, subscribe if you like my content. If you don't, maybe we'll see you next time. I can do better. Give me some feedback. So, Joker and Donovan Sharp have already broken down this video from the TED Talk, so I'm not going to rehash the whole video. If you want to check out their breakdowns, I'll leave links in the description below. You can also follow the link to the TED Talk and see the whole thing if you want. But I wanted to focus on one very particular aspect of her video, which is her list. So before we get into her wants, she does take about 30 seconds. I mean, it's about a 40-minute lecture that she gives. She takes about 30 seconds of that to state what she thinks men want and what she tries to bring to the table. So let me switch over, and we'll play this and see what she says.
I'm not quite sure why it hasn't worked out for me yet. Obviously, my educational and career choices have forced me to move around a little bit in the past few years. But even still, I'm fun, I'm charming, I'm not completely hideous, I'm not high maintenance, I love cooking, I like watching sports, I like having sex. So, I've got a lot of pros in the minds of the male of our species, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so we're going to break this down one by one, just quickly. She says, "I'm fun and I'm charming." Her facial expression when she says this seems to indicate that she's had at least one ex-boyfriend tell her the opposite on both counts. Typically, you don't have to describe yourself as fun and charming if you're able to show it. And since she's giving a lecture, she has an opportunity to try and show it. And I see a couple of times where she tries to be it, but it kind of falls flat. So questionable at best. She describes herself as not completely hideous. Notice that she does not describe herself as physically attractive. She realizes that if a guy walks into to a room and has a choice between talking to her or talking to a hot blonde bombshell that doesn't have her education but has all the same other characteristics, then she loses hands down. So physically, she's not going to be able to get the initial interaction with men that she's looking for. Not high maintenance. Every girl that I've ever seen describe themselves as not high maintenance is either delusional or lying. If that's what you use to describe yourself, it typically means that you are high maintenance. And we'll see in her list here in a few minutes that I tend to think it's delusional more than lying. I like cooking and she likes having bedroom fun. Those are real bonuses that men are looking for, just like in the joke before, cooking and fun were in there. However, I do kind of have a potential red flag here. She describes herself earlier in the thing as perpetually single. And that's actually the title of the lecture. So if she likes having fun, assuming that she would do it regularly, if possible, but she's been perpetually single, that means that she's been doing it outside of a committed relationship, which can be a red flag. She likes watching sports. So that can be hit or miss with guys. We have male friends for that, so it's something we need from our wife or girlfriend. Some guys like it when their wife or girlfriend enjoys sports with them. Some guys don't like it at all. Some guys actually don't want that. So it really depends. So that's not really a plus or minus. It just really depends on the guy. So she actually did hit on a couple things that guys actually would be looking for, but most of what she was listing is either not accurate or not what guys are looking for at all. So she doesn't have a complete picture of what she needs to do. Moving on to her list, it gets really interesting now. So here is her first list. When I say first list, this is what she said, when she was younger. And keep in mind, she's 31 here, so this couldn't have been too far back, but this was her original list. She wants somebody that's tall. She's 5'10", and she likes to wear heels, so she wants somebody that's over 6'1", and that limits her options to roughly 15% of all possible men. So lumping a few of these together because they're basically the same thing, and synonyms for each other. She says handsome, athletic, strong, short hair. Basically, she wants a hot guy. And again, when your options are already at 15%, now you let's say the top 10% of them are hot. You're down to effectively like 3% tops. And it gets better because now she also lists smart, educated. So keep in mind she has a PhD. So it's likely that she wants somebody with at least a master's, if not a PhD. And the reason I say that, and I've seen this in my own life, but when I was working on my undergraduate degrees, I had a female professor state in a lecture talk, you'll often see that men will marry down, but you will never see a woman marry down. And what she was talking about was if a man has a PhD, he doesn't care if the woman he was talking to only has a high school diploma, again, as long as she can kind of hold a conversation. But he doesn't need her to have a college degree. You'll find those pairings all over the place. But you will never find a woman with a PhD that isn't with somebody who doesn't at least have a master's degree, if not a PhD. Because of that, in the U.S., roughly 13% of the entire population, men and women, have at least a master's degree, and only 1.2% have a PhD. Again, that's both for men and women. So assuming the advanced degrees were evenly distributed between the sexes, and they're not, women in recent years have make up the majority of those degrees. But just for argument's sake, let's assume it's split 50-50. That's limiting her options to somewhere between 0.6 and 6% of the entire population of men, which leaves a very small, opportunity for a date. So basically, between being tall and educated, she's effectively eliminated 99% of all of her potential dates without even talking to them. So moving on, again, lumping some things together, she lists hardworking, ambitious, nice car, good income, has a boat. Basically, she wants a guy with money. And another side thing with money is spousal hire support. Apparently, she wants somebody who can get her a job. So has money and can get her a job. And if it's given the fact that her field is pretty specific, getting her a job means that she also wants a guy who is educated or has a job that's in a related field to what she studied, which is history. So again, narrowing her world down to almost nobody. So without even going into the rest of the list, political beliefs, which we'll talk about later, and confident, likes to cook, plumbing, all that other stuff, she's effectively eliminated all men, and then she wonders why she's still single. So later on in the lecture, she states that as time went on, she started giving up some things on her list, and she started to think that maybe some of those things that she was giving up were really important, but she still whittled down the list to a more manageable list. And even with that, she was worried that she was going to settle and that she was going to end up with somebody who wasn't going to make her happy. But all that said, she did come up with a smaller list. And that smaller list, interestingly enough, has the 3 big things on it that we've already talked about, which basically eliminated all men. She also states that she wanted shared political beliefs, which, given the fact that she's in academia, that tends to mean that she's probably leans pretty far to the left. There's a silver lining to that one, though, since her educational requirements would mean that the guy would also likely be in academia, or at least spend a significant amount of time there, that he's likely also in that same category. But I did find the reason for this interesting, because this will go to show what type of men she's looking for and is likely not going to be happy with. Her reason for wanting somebody with the same political beliefs or similar political beliefs is that she doesn't like to argue. And this typically, when you hear that, is code for I'm always right and I want a guy that I can walk all over. If she was to find a guy that was in that category, she's not going to be happy with him because she's walking all over him. I think Jennifer Molesky had a video where she basically described that for him. It's like, hey, if you get everything you want and he gives you everything you want, you're not going to be happy because you're not going to respect him. And the other interesting thing about this list, and it doesn't show up in the actual list, but actually in the video, where when she describes sense of humor encompasses almost everything else that's not mentioned or covered in the other things that was in this original list. So sense of humor is an all-encompassing thing that fits everything else that was in her previous list. So she really didn't whittle it down at all. She just is now consolidating it into 5 things, and that 5th thing has a subset that's a mile long. Despite the fact that she's continuously single and realizing that her original list was too specific and whittled it down to something that looks at it on the surface looks a little more manageable, she has yet to really take a deep dive into how she's approaching dating and identify the real reasons she's single and how to address them. A real easy one for her would be, 1, get in shape. That would improve her health, it would improve her looks, which would make her more physically attractive to the men that she's hoping to get with, and it would also give her more confidence. And then realize that limiting her options, and I'm going to be generous here, to 1% of the male population is going to decrease her chances of finding someone. If you eliminate virtually everybody, you can't then say, well, why am I single? You said you weren't going to date anybody without even talking to them. So how in the world are you going to find somebody if you're not even going to talk to most of the 99% of the population? So anyway, that's all I had for this video. Again, if you like my content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.